Saxon Algebra 1, Lesson 6. Last time I introduced to you to my very famous ladder in the meadow diagram, which you may remember is basically a number line sticking out of a hole, right? I like to think of it as a ladder because I imagine myself climbing up and down. And we learned how to use this to combine or add positive and negative numbers. Remember, the step that's even with the ground is a 0. We go positive as we go up toward Jack and the Beanstalk territory, but that's another story. And then we go down. It's just a number line, tipped on its side in this meadow, but we climb up and down it to combine signed numbers. Now, we're still going to visualize this. We're still going to think about this, but we're going to come up with some simple rules that will help you do this more fluidly, and you won't have to think about this crazy picture all the time. All right, so in example 6.1, we're going to add +1 and +3. Now, we can do it with the ladder, right? We know how to do this. We climb on, we go up 1, and then we go up 3 more, and we see that we end up at +4. But we also know 1 + 3 equals 4, right? We've been doing that for a while now. You probably figured that out a long time ago. So this is called doing it with the diagram. And this is called doing it algebraically, which means we're not looking at the picture. All right, so this is with the picture and this is without. So if the numbers are both positive, we can just add them. It's no big deal. Here's the other part of part 1. Oh, wow, that went wrong. There, that's a little better. What if we want to combine -1 and -3? All right, let's look at that on the diagram and see what happens. We start at 0, we go down 1, and then we go down 3 more. That takes us to -4. Huh, okay. So let's come up with a rule for that. If both numbers are negative, we can ignore the sign, add the numbers just like we usually do, 1 + 3 is 4, and then put the sign back on, right? So we can say -1 plus -3 equals -4. We combine the 1 and the 3, and then they're both moving in the same direction. So the answer is definitely going to be minus, and then we just add those two numbers. 1 and 3 is 4. Notice that this is for adding and subtracting sign numbers. This is not multiplying and dividing. Different rules. All right, so if the signs are the same, we just add the numbers and put on the same sign as the numbers have, right? What if they're going in opposite directions? Let's see. Example 6.2. Okay, so this is both positive. This is both negative. So, as you might guess, in this one, we're going to combine -2 and +5. Okay, so this time we have a positive and a negative, right? We're going in 2 directions. So let's see what happens when we get on the ladder. We go down 2, 1, 2, and then we go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gives us an answer of +3. Now, how could we make some rules around this? Notice what happened. We subtracted, forget about these signs. We took just the 5 and the 2. We find the difference between 5 and 2. That's 3. And then we give it the sign of the bigger number, right? 5 is larger than 2. Forget about the signs when we look at that as well. 5 is greater than 2, so 5 sign is going to win. That's how I look at it. So the final answer, -2 plus, and I'm going to put parentheses around that. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute, equals +3, right? We see that they're going in opposite directions. We find the difference between the two numbers without the signs attached. 5, the difference between 5 and 2 is 3. And then we give it the sign of the larger addend. I didn't want to say that word, but that's what it is. All right, the bigger number overrules. All right, that's one scenario. The other scenario is positive 2 and negative 5. Okay, well, let's try that. We get on at 0, we go up 2, and then we go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 3. Okay, now let's look at the rule. It works the same way. We notice that they have different signs. So we look at just the number. We take the difference between the number 5 and 2, that's 3, and we give it the sign of the larger number, that's negative. So we can say positive 2 plus minus 5 equals minus 3. So if we have one positive and one negative number, we subtract, and here's where it gets fancy. We subtract the absolute values. That's my way of saying, like with these two, you ignore this plus and minus and you just say 5 minus 2. We're taking the absolute value of those two numbers. That's a super mathy way to say it, but it's most precise. So we subtract the absolute value and we give the sign of the larger number. Before there were hashtags, remember, that's a sign that meant number. So this, and this will become more obvious as we do more of these, and maybe you already remember. We'll get the hang of that. But this is the rule for when the signs are different. All right, that's going to wean us off this meadow thing, ladder in the meadow thing, so that we don't have to do that all the time. Not that it isn't fun, because I'm all for a good ladder in a meadow, aren't you? It's so Alice in Wonderlandy. Okay, what if we have not just two numbers, but a big fat string? We are supposed to add all these numbers. Are you ready? And you may remember this from last year. John's kind of into putting these numbers into little separate compartments, buckets, if you will. They almost remind me of train cars, where there's a sign and a number in each bucket. Well, this one doesn't have a sign. Let's give it one, plus. All right, now we could get out our ladder and start climbing up and down, but frankly, there's a lot of ups and downs in this, and I don't want to lose my mind. So here's what we can do. We can use our rule about combining numbers with the same sign, and we can easily put together the two negative numbers and then the two positive numbers. So let's do that. Let's combine these two. All right, the rule is you just add them like the regular numbers and put on the same sign. So that's going to be minus 8. Put him in a bucket. And then how about the positives? 4 and 2, that's 6. They stay positive. Okay, so now we have simplified from 4 to 2 addends, if you will. And now we can just do this. We switch to our other rule. This is one of each. So now what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we want to find the difference between 8 and 6. That's 2. And we give it the sign of the larger number. 8's bigger than 6, so it's going to be minus. Yay. Here's do another one. Much the same way. Ready? Minus 3. Okay, same thing. We've got 4 addends, 2 are positive, 2 are negative. It would not be wrong to just climb on the ladder and start going down, then up, then down, then up. But it sounds like a recipe for seasickness. So let's combine the negatives and the positives. Notice that I squiggle the negatives and double underline the positives. That's just to help me see which ones are going to go together. And it doesn't matter. I just do whatever comes into my head. Squiggles don't have to be negatives. You could do whatever you want. You can use colors, but it's a helpful tool for just outlining what it is you want to do with this problem. So I combine these two. They have the same sign. So I can just add the numbers. That's 5 and give it the same sign. Put it in a little bucket there. I'm going to add to it +2 and +4. That sounds like +6. Now I'm ready to do one sign of each. 6 and 5, the difference between 6 and 5 is 1. And then I give it the sign of the larger number, and that's positive. Yeah, that's positive. 6 is positive. Yay, that's right. Cool. Now, John's been showing us this little technique that he uses to keep everything super organized and clear of inserting parentheses. That's what he calls this idea of putting each one in its own little bubble with a sign and a value. We're not going to do that forever, but it is a very helpful tool for staying organized in these problems. So John's going to give us a problem that looks like this. All right, there's no little bubbles packaging each of these the way we're used to it. And if you want to, you can just go through and remember that we're adding all of these together and just add the little bubbles. You can, that's fine. Or you can start to train yourself to just kind of imagining them, and you don't have to write them all in. I'm going to rewrite it again because I want to practice doing it that way. Okay, so what we've done is we've just left this without any of the bubbles, but I know each one of these, they're all being added together, and there's a sign and a number for each one. Even though it says minus, I'm actually just adding, right? This is a plus. I'm adding a negative number. So I can do this in much the same way as I did these. I just won't add all those little bubbles and extra plus signs in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to underline the negative addends. There's only one positive. All right. So I'm going to do the very same thing. I'm going to combine all these negatives first by just adding the numbers and then putting a negative sign in front. 4 plus 3 is 7, 11, 14, 15, 16. So that's negative 16. Let me just double check it. 7, 11, 14, 15, 16. Okay. And then there's my only positive. And then that's easy for me to see. The difference is 14. 16 is the larger number, so the minus sign is what goes on the answer. Yay. Two more problems, and then we're done. Here comes another one. Double checking to make sure I copied right. Please copy your problems down. Once you've been doing these for maybe 3 days of homework, 3 sets of homework, I'm okay with you starting to just read these out of the book and combine them in your head instead of writing everything down. But here's the thing. It's really easy to start making mistakes because these are going to get longer and crazier. So go ahead if you want to. If it bothers you to write it down in the book in your homework like this, you can try to do it in your head just looking at the problem in the book. You know what I'm saying? You could look at this and you could go, okay, where are the negatives? There's a 2 and a 4 and a 2, so that's 8, right? And negative 8, positive 14. You could do that. But if you start making mistakes, then go back to writing it in your book. That's my bottom line. If you start making silly mistakes and getting things wrong, that means you're trying to carry too much in your head. So go back. All right, negative, negative, negative. I add those up. 2, 4, 2, that's 8 to the negative. And I'm going to not put bubbles around it. And then my positives, 11 and 3, that's positive 14. To combine these, I take the difference, which is 6, and I would give it the sign of the larger number. Yay. And the last one. Okay. Ooh, John's going to throw us a curveball. Are you ready? Do you see it? These are parentheses. These are perfectly straight. That means this is an absolute value sign. Oh, isn't that tricky? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop these parentheses off because these don't have no parentheses. I don't want to mix them in because that just confuses me. So I'm going to write -4 plus, now, absolute value strips off that minus sign. So now I can just write +2, right? That changes. +3, -7, -2. Here's my negatives. I add them together. 4 and 7 is 11. 12, 13 to the minus. Here are my positives. I have 2 of them now because that turned into a positive. That's +5. The difference is 8. 13 is bigger, and that's a negative, so my answer is -8. Okay? And then the very last thing John says is just a little theoretical tidbit that I want to throw at you. We're used to seeing subtraction written like this. But this is exactly the same thing. Adding a negative number is the same thing as subtracting. So subtraction almost becomes obsolete in our vocabulary because we now are doing a lot of subtraction by adding a negative number. Okay, so just remember that we don't usually talk about subtraction anymore. We just talk about adding a negative number. Okay, we are done. You have some practice problems. Look what John does to you. Forget about the little easy problems we were doing. He throws you right into the deep end of the pool and starts throwing these absolute values at you. Even though we're only doing odd numbered problems, I would like you to do all of the practice. You should have the answers to all the practice in your solutions manual. These are really important because they give you a chance to practice what we just learned, okay? So all the practice, odd numbered problem sets. Yay! That's all for lesson 6. Thank you, goodbye.